Wayside School is Falling Down, chapters 20 through 24. Chapter 20, 21, and 22. Eric, Eric, and Eric. Mr. Kidswater's voice crackled over the loudspeaker. Mrs. Jules, send Eric to my office at once. He sounded mad. Mrs. Jules was confused. When did we get a loudspeaker, she asked. Louis put it in yesterday, said Jenny. Mrs. Jules was still confused. There were 3 Erics in her class. She didn't know which one Mr. Kidswater meant. Eric Fry was fat but not short. Eric Brown was short but not fat. Eric Ovens was short and fat. Mrs. Jules chose the biggest Eric. Eric Fry, Mr. Kidswater wants to see you. Eric Fry trembled as he slowly stood up. The other 2 Erics smiled. The principal's office was on the first floor. It's not fair, Eric thought as he headed down to his doom. Anytime Eric does something wrong, I'm the one who gets in trouble. He stood in front of the principal's door. His heart beat very fast. He took a couple of breaths, then knocked lightly. Enter, boomed Mr. Kidswater. Eric turned the doorknob. He took 1 step inside, then stood with his back against the wall as far away from Mr. Kidswater as he could get. Mr. Kidswater sat behind an enormous desk. He wore mirrored sunglasses so Eric couldn't tell where he was looking. Sit down, Eric, he said. Eric moved to the small metal chair in front of the desk. A bare light bulb hung above his head. Mr. Kidswater cracked his knuckles. We can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way, he said. It's your choice. I don't know what you're talking about, said Eric. I didn't do anything. So it's the hard way, is it? Asked Mr. Kidswater. Very well. You'll talk. One way or another, you'll tell me everything I want to know. But, Mr. Kidswater pounded his fist on his desk. When was the last time you sharpened your pencil? Eric tried to remember, but he was too nervous to think. Wait. Let me think, he stammered. We had a spelling test on Friday, but I borrowed. Where were you yesterday afternoon at 12:15? Asked Mr. Kidswater. Yesterday? Asked Eric. I was here at Wayside School. I remember I ate lunch and then I played kickball. Mr. Kidswater smiled. Do you kick with your left foot? He asked. No, I'm right-footed, said Eric Fry. Humph, grumbled Mr. Kidswater. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? Yes, said Eric. 2 weeks ago. Aha, said Mr. Kidswater, so you admit it. Do you know what a mugworm griblick is? Eric Fry turned pale. No, please, he begged. I didn't do it. I'm innocent. You've got the wrong Eric. There are 2 other Erics in my class. Mr. Kidswater scowled. So that's the way you're going to play it, is it? Well, that's fine with me. I've got all the time in the world. He flicked on the microphone. Mrs. Jules, send me another Eric. 29 floors above them, Mrs. Jules looked at the 2 remaining Erics. Okay, Eric Ovens, she said. Eric Ovens shivered. His eyes filled with tears. Why me? He asked over and over again as he walked down the stairs. It's my parents' fault. Why did they have to name me Eric? Why couldn't they name me Osgood? He tapped on the door to the principal's office. Come in, bellowed Mr. Kidswater. Eric Ovens gulped, then walked inside. He sat in the little chair in front of Mr. Kidswater's enormous desk. Eric Fry was nowhere to be seen. What happened to Eric Fry? He asked. I'll ask the questions, barked Mr. Kidswater. But don't worry, Eric, he said gently. You have nothing to fear so long as you tell the truth. He cracked his knuckles. Eric Ovens was very scared. Mrs. Jules always said that there was more than one answer to every question. He hoped he gave Mr. Kidswater the right one. Did you have a spelling test last Friday? Mr. Kidswater asked. Yes, said Eric Ovens. How did you know that? I have my ways, Mr. Kidswater said slyly. Behind his mirrored glasses. When was the last time you sharpened your pencil? This morning, said Eric Ovens. Mauricia accidentally stepped on it and... Did you play kickball yesterday at 12:15? No, I played tetherball. Right or left-handed? Right. Mr. Kidswater tossed a stapler at him. Eric caught it with his right hand. Mr. Kidswater scowled. Okay, Eric, tell me this. Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop? No, but I will. I'll go right now if you want. You're not going anywhere, shouted Mr. Kidswater. Have you ever heard of a mugworm griblick? Eric Ovens screamed. Upstairs, Mrs. Jules heard Mr. Kidswater's voice resound over the loudspeaker. Mrs. Jules, send me the last Eric. On my way, said Eric Bacon. He hopped out of his chair and bounced down the stairs. He didn't bother knocking on Mr. Kidswater's door. He just walked right in. What can I do for you? He asked. There was no sign of Eric Ovens. Have a seat, said Mr. Kidswater. I just want to ask you a few questions. Sure thing, said Eric Bacon. He sat in the little chair. He leaned back with his hands behind his head and his feet up on Mr. Kidswater's desk. He looked at himself in Mr. Kidswater's mirrored glasses, took a comb out of his back pocket, and combed his hair. His hair was very neat and trim. He had gotten it cut yesterday at 12:15 at Charlie's barber shop. Mr. Kidswater cracked his knuckles. "When's the last time you sharpened your pencil?" he asked. "November 11th, Eric Bacon answered right away. "It was 3 minutes before 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember because my watch stopped." "Where were you yesterday at 12:15? "I was in the garden having tea." "Did Mauricia step on somebody's pencil this morning?" asked Mr. Kidswater. "Yes." "Whose?" "She stepped on everybody's pencil," said Eric Bacon. "Are you left-handed or right-footed?" demanded Mr. Kidswater. "I write with my left foot, and I kick with my right hand," replied Eric Bacon. Mr. Kidswater scowled. "Have you ever gotten your hair cut at Charlie's barber shop?" "No, I never get my hair cut," said Eric Bacon. "I'm bald. This is a wig." Mr. Kidswater took off his glasses and glared at him. "Do the words mug, worm, griblick mean anything to you?" Eric Bacon shook his head. "I can look it up in the dictionary if you want." Mr. Kidswater shook his head. "I tried that," he said. "It's not there." He rubbed his chin. "Okay, boys, you can come out now." Eric Ovens and Eric Fry crawled out from under the desk. Mr. Kidswater looked at each Eric. "One of you is lying," he said. "I don't know who it is, but I'll find out, and when I do, whoever it is will be very sorry. Now I'll give you one last chance to come clean." Eric Fry trembled. Eric Ovens shivered. "Come on, let's blow this popsicle stand," said Eric Bacon. He walked out of the room. The other two Erics followed. Mr. Kidswater rubbed the back of his neck. He looked at the white card on top of his desk. On one side it said, "Charlie's Barber Shop." Under that, in blue ink, it said, he turned the card over. On the other side, a left-handed person had written with a sharp pencil, "Mr. Kidswater is a mugworm griblick." Chapter 23. Teeth. Something terrible happened. Rondi grew 2 new front teeth. Rondi was afraid nobody would think she was cute anymore. Mrs. Jules was giving a health lesson. "Always brush your teeth," she said, "and remember to scrub behind your ears." "But I'll get toothpaste in my ear," exclaimed Todd. Everyone laughed, except Rondi. She didn't want anybody to see her teeth. She hadn't smiled for a week. Mrs. Jules made Todd write his name on the board under the word discipline. At recess, Rondi decided to tell Louis her problem. Louis was talking to Dee Dee. "Do you have any green balls left?" asked Dee Dee. "I'm sorry, I've already given them all away," said Louis. "That's not fair," said Dee Dee. "Why don't you ever save one for me?" "You know I can't do that," said Louis. "If I save a ball for you, then all the other kids will want me to save balls for them too." "Thanks for nothing, Louis," said Dee Dee. She stormed away. It was Rondi's turn. She made sure nobody else was listening. "Louis, will you help me?" she whispered. "Sure, Rondi. What's the problem?" asked Louis. Rondi smiled, showing Louis her teeth. "Very nice," said Louis. "And listen to this," said Rondi. "She sells seashells by the seashore." "Very good," said Louis. "No, it isn't," complained Rondi. "I used to whistle when I said words with S's in them. Now nobody will think I'm cute." "I think you're cute," said Louis. "You don't count," said Rondi. "Well, thanks a lot," said Louis. "I didn't mean it bad," said Rondi. "You think everybody's cute, even Miss Mush. That's why I like you." "Thank you, Rondi. I like you too." "Thank you," said Rondi. "Will you please kick me in the teeth?" "No," said Louis. "Why not?" asked Rondi. "You said you liked me. If you liked me, you'd kick me in the teeth." You know I can't," said Louis. "If I kick you in the teeth, then all the other kids will want me to kick them in the teeth too." Rondi scowled. "Thanks for nothing, Louis," she said. She crawled into the bushes where nobody would be able to see her mouth. "Louis, Louis," shouted Stephen and Jason as they ran toward him. "Terrence stole our ball," said Jason. "I wish you children would learn to share," said Louis. "Make him give it back," said Stephen. Louis started to say something, then stopped. He twirled his multicolored mustache. "Hey, Rondi," he called, "will you help me?" Rondi crawled out of the bushes. "You wouldn't help me," she said. "Why should I help you?" "Terrence stole their ball," said Louis. "Make him give it back." "Her?" asked Stephen and Jason. "Me?" asked Rondi. Louis winked at her. Rondi's eyes lit up. "Okay, Louis," she said. "That's a good idea. That's a wonderful idea." She hurried across the playground. Stephen and Jason ran after her. Terrence kicked a red ball up into the air, then ran under it and caught it. "Hey, Terrence," said Rondi, "that's not your ball. You stole it." "Drop dead, ketchup head," said Terrence. Rondi walked up to him, stared him straight in the eye, and said, "In your hat, muskrat." That surprised Terrence. He took a step back. Then he collected himself and said, "Dig a hole, Millie Mole." Randy took another step toward him. "Kiss a goose, Dr. Seuss," she replied. Terrence looked around. A group of kids had formed a circle around them. "Go to jail, garbage pail," he said. Rondi held her ground. "Go to the zoo, Mr. Magoo," she retorted. Everyone was very impressed by how brave Rondi was. "Now give me the ball," she demanded. You want it? Asked Terrence. I'll give it to you, all right. He raised his fist in the air. Good, let me have it, said Rondi. She smiled, showing him her 2 new teeth. Terrence shook his fist at her. You're asking for it, he said. That's right, said Rondi. I am. Her teeth gleamed at him. Terrence brought his fist way back behind him. Rondi closed her eyes. Hey, look, exclaimed Bibi. Rondi's got new teeth. They're cute, said Jenny. Rondi opened her eyes. You think so? She asked. No, you were cuter before, said Paul. I think she's cuter now, said Todd. They took a vote. 12 kids thought she looked cuter with her 2 new teeth, and 12 thought she looked cuter before. 3 thought she should keep just 1 tooth. So Rondi decided to keep her teeth. They were good for biting carrots. Uh-oh, she suddenly remembered she ducked just in time.